For more, let's cross to Iain Begg, who teaches at the London School of Economics. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Good evening.
Did you see this coming?
Well, yes, because Thomas Cook has been in trouble for many years. Even a decade ago, it had to go through a massive refinancing where it called on shareholders, and that additional money has gradually been depleted. In a way, it's very straightforward. It's not making money, and a company that doesn't make money ultimately tends to go bust.
Ultimately tends to go bust. It borrows more and more. It is a tale of globalization, is it not? The fact that they have to compete with online travel agents, and also this story that's emerging about how their bosses paid themselves nice big bonuses every year.
Well, yes, there is transformation inside the travel industry. But having said that, there are other package tour companies, and that's what Thomas Cook is, which have been able to survive the competition from online travel agencies and all the others. So it's clearly about the internal management of Thomas Cook rather than whether the business model as a whole is completely redundant. And yes, it is the case that some of the bosses inside Thomas Cook seem to have been paying themselves rather generously. But even if you paid them nothing at all, I think this company would still have been in trouble because the scale of its losses far exceeds the excessive payment made to the higher management.
To the higher management, and yet we live in a world where more and more people are going on vacation.
Yes, and you think that should create a market in which all companies can prosper. So it does come down to bad management by the way Thomas Cook has been run. And one example of this I've heard about is that they invested very heavily in the Sharm el-Sheikh development in Egypt, ignoring the risks, the political risks, that would be an area subject to potential terrorism, and therefore being told by the British Foreign Office, travellers being told by the British Foreign Office, this is a risky place to go on holiday.
Now, this was the top news story this morning on French radio, not least because there are 10,000 French tourists stranded, and it owns Jet Tours, which is a package operator here in this country. But the journalists on the radio saying, oh, another blow in the run-up to Brexit. Is there a link with Brexit?
I think if there is a link with Brexit, it's quite marginal compared with the poor management of the company. If we try to trace it, the pound fell as a result of the referendum in 2016 and has stayed low. And that means that British holidaymakers can buy less for their scarce pounds when they go on holiday. And that creates an incentive to stay at home. There may also have been some suggestion that Brits are no longer as welcome as they used to be in other countries, and that deters people. But yet we've seen a major fall in the Turkish lira, to give one example. Turkey became much cheaper, so there is still a huge market there, and you keep coming back to the same diagnosis, that this is mismanagement by the company rather than any of the external factors that some people are suggesting.
Two big destinations for Thomas Cook, Spain and Greece. What impact will it have on those countries?
Well, anywhere where they rely on Brits showing up in numbers is going to be affected. And we should remember as well that Thomas Cook has a very big presence in Germany. The German company, in theory, is insulated from what's happened to the British company, but they have IT platforms in common. They have the same planes that they use. So there is a risk as well to tourists coming from other countries that this will just slow down the market. And if those particular holidaymakers have lost money through Thomas Cook, they're going to be that much more cautious about going to the same destinations in future, not because of anything the destinations have done, simply because if you are the one that's been affected, you think, whoa, why should I take this risk again?
Iain Begg, there's another aspect to this story that captures the imagination of people around the world, which is that it's a 178-year-old company. What does that say to you?
Well, I think if you look around the world and ask who are now the biggest companies in the world, few of them started more than 20 years ago, like Google or Microsoft. Facebook. Some of the old companies that we thought of 100 years ago have totally disappeared off the map. You get massive churn going on as new industries come into being and as old companies disappear. Even in the travel industry, it's the new models, be it Airbnb or the online travel agencies like Expedia, which have taken a big share of the market, and the more traditional ones disappear. But if they're nimble, they can get around this. So this is an intriguing example of how capitalism functions. It destroys as well as creates, and those companies which don't see what's coming just don't survive. Do you remember Kodak? It used to make cameras.
Well, many thanks for that, Iain Begg of the London School of Economics, for joining us here on France 24.